No, that's not necessary. Just stick it in there. Oh, works better when they're dead.
Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're looking back at 20 years of Xbox to find 10 OG Xbox games that deserve a remake.
Narcland. The spaceport hangars should be up ahead. Better to stay low and unnoticed.
The engine's hot, let's move!
Here we go.
For this list, we'll be looking at the original titles for Microsoft's big, mean, green machine and finding the ones that deserve another chance in the spotlight after 2 decades hiding in the shadows. What was your favorite memory from the original Xbox? Have a game you want to see remade from Xbox's back catalog? Let us know down in the comments. Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Blinx the Time Sweeper. No matter the console, it seems every one of them decided they need a mascot to help sell the system. For Nintendo, it's Mario, Sega was Sonic, and PlayStation had Crash, among others. While Master Chief was considered the unofficial mascot of Xbox at the time, it seems Microsoft was looking for something just a bit cuter and cuddlier. Blinx the Time Sweeper certainly met the criteria, and his time-bending vacuum cleaner and rewind, speed up, and slow down time powers made him stand out in a market crowded with mascots. However, beyond the graphics, many criticized the game's unfair difficulty that was mostly due to the controls rather than design. It sold well enough for a sequel, but has since blinked out of existence. In a time when Microsoft could always use a few more exclusives, now is the perfect time to hit rewind and give this cat a replay. The Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay.
The darkness, for me, is where I shine.
Movie tie-in games are mostly hit or miss. Most of the time, many of them barely pass as games, clearly just a publisher trying to capitalize on a film's success by churning out what amounts to shovelware. For a game to surpass the movie it's tied to in terms of storytelling and quality is almost completely unheard of. Developed by Starbreeze Studios with direct collaboration from Vin Diesel nearly every step of the way, everything about Butcher Bay clicked in a way the Chronicles of Riddick film didn't. Instead of following the film it was based on, we got a look at Riddick's early years and even insight into how he got the shine for his eyes that were such a pivotal characteristic of Riddick in the film franchise.
Riddick, tell me, what do you see?
Everything.
If rumors of another Riddick movie are true, now is the perfect time to escape Butcher Bay once again.
Now come on, Johns. Greed is an ugly thing.
You're in no position to negotiate, Riddick.
Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth.
6 years after entering that house in Boston, no trace was left of what had been a secondary personality. I was myself again, or at least what I believed myself to be.
Horror games never go out of style, and just like in film, the psychological terror has a tendency to stick with you longer than jump scares do. Much like the recent releases under the Cthulhu mythos, Dark Corners of the Earth follows an already unstable detective investigating a small seaside town and the horrors that lurk just below the depths. The title took a non-traditional route for this type of game, setting the game in first person, combined with stealth gameplay and visually no HUD to speak of to keep the player fully immersed in their new nightmare. The title sold poorly upon release and eventually led to the studio claiming bankruptcy. For fans of Cthulhu, however, This title represents a benchmark for the works of H.P. Lovecraft, and given the mythos' unending popularity, dark corners of the earth should also rise from the depths to break players' sanity all over again. Jet Set Radio Future. There's nothing quite like sticking it to the man and doing it in style, looking slick and leaving your mark on the world for all to see and letting the people know that you stand with them. In the future where voices are being silenced, it's up to you and your crew to outrun the oppressors and look fly while doing it with a bag of sick tricks and your inline skates. The visual style of Tokyo To is timeless, and whipping through the streets at blazing speeds gives you an endless sense of freedom as you trick your way to new areas with even more places to leave your mark. We haven't seen the GG crew in almost 2 decades, but we know the people are still with us and want to see the crew reunite to take the fight to the streets once again and fight for those who won't fight for themselves. I am so sorry. Mech Assault.
Just you, me, briefing boy here, a handful of pilots, and some of your favorite toys. You up for this?
For something seemingly so perfect for video games, it's staggering how few giant robot games we see nowadays. Mech Assault not only was a solid title for the then fledgling Xbox console, but was also one of the very first to offer online multiplayer through Xbox Live. Many giant mech games treat the mechs as lumbering monstrosities where every step seemingly needs to be calculated. Mech Assault's battle mechs were quick, nimble, stacked with firepower, and still able to turn on a dime. While the story may have been somewhat basic and convoluted, the gameplay is solid even today, and the first game was successful enough to spawn a sequel with Mech Assault 2: Lone Wolf. Sadly, this series hasn't been seen since the first Xbox, and if we're not lucky enough for a full release, this series could easily stand out in the crowded free-to-play battle royale market.
Brace yourselves, boys. We're going in.
Armed and Dangerous.
Come and get it! Best guide dogs I ever owned.
I have 3 words to sell you on why Armed and Dangerous needs a remake. Land Shark Gun. If that's not enough, then how about the fact it was developed by LucasArts? Yes, that LucasArts. And despite it being a third-person shooter, manages to retain all of the brilliant lightning-fast jokes and one-liners of their best adventure games?
Help me, please.
Serial killer. Caught him in the act.
A serial killer?
Yep. Wheat, oats, barley, you name it. He was cutting them all down.
Really? I'm not sure what else you need for me to convince you. Set in a fantasy world, but with guns, the game features a wildly diverse cast of characters, all with their own distinct personalities, and some of the most fun and varied weapon designs this side of Ratchet & Clank. With LucasArts making a comeback in the gaming space, now would be the perfect time for them to revisit one of their most fun and overlooked titles from their already stacked portfolio. And again, Land, Shark, Gun.
Hold it! Wait! Give me another chance! It's been a long time since I kissed a man! I can do better!
Kiss! You moron! I said give me that kiss! Sorry, our mistake.
Crimson Skies, High Road to Revenge.
Nathan, are you cool, y'all? This is my plan now.
Yeah, well, you win some, you lose some.
Video games are the perfect place to experiment with what-if style of alternate history possibilities, and games like Crimson Skies: High Road to Revenge is a perfect example of how to do it right. Set in an alternate 1930s, the player takes on the role of Nathan Zachary and his quest for revenge while leading his gang of sky pirates, which might be one of the coolest things you could ever put on a resume. The game was extremely well received and earned especially high marks for its graphics, gameplay, and implementation of Xbox Live. Players would eventually have access to a dozen different types of aircraft, and the arcadey nature of the title made it easy for most anyone to pick up and play. The time has come for the pirates to take flight once again and reclaim the skies.
You know, for a man with a reputation as a charmer, you sure make a terrible first impression.
Advent Rising.
Unless, of course, you have proof of these divine beings. Living proof.
In today's age of game development, every AAA title has the budget of a big summer blockbuster film and the marketing push to back it up. Back in 2005, developer Glyphx Games set out to do just that with video games long before it was the norm. With names like Orson Scott Card attached to writing duties and Tommy Tallarico scoring the game with a full orchestra, this game was meant to be the first in a trilogy of games and future spin-offs. Unfortunately, despite the title attempting to do what Mass Effect would accomplish far more successfully only a few years later, reception was mixed to say the least. It's truly disappointing this series never got a chance to grow into something special, and given its cinematic presentation, would easily fit into today's AAA landscape if given another chance to rise. Otogi, Myth of Demons.
You must revive the Great Seal. The seal protected the world of men for over 1,000 years.
Nowadays, From Software is basically a household name for anyone with even a passing interest in video games. But back in 2003, they were mostly unknown and no one could have guessed their Xbox exclusive title would lay the groundwork for what would eventually give the world Dark Souls. Sony's PlayStation 5 launched with a remake of Demon's Souls, the game that put the From Software formula on the map, so it's only right that Xbox players have a remake of their own Souls formula game. Many of the familiar elements of Souls games are all here, including the trademark difficulty, but with the addition of destructible environments, which was especially impressive on the original Xbox. With From Software more successful than ever, even if it's not the same studio in charge of the remake, simply giving their blessing like with Bluepoint and Demon's Souls could give Xbox players something that was exclusive just for them.
To fulfill the promise I made long ago, I face my final test. Soon the fate of this godless world will rest in my hand.
Jade Empire.
My power is stretched thin, bled away, and you are too small, too mortal to truly understand. But small things can move beneath the notice of others.
Coming off the success of KOTOR, BioWare was ready to take on their next big RPG, and while Mass Effect was still a couple years away, the studio chose to visit somewhere a bit more grounded. Jade Empire takes the familiar BioWare RPG formula of player choice and applied it to hand-to-hand combat set in the world of Chinese mythology. The game was another huge success for the studio critically, but failed to reach the projected sales, most likely due to the release of the Xbox 360 right around the corner. Of all the franchises in BioWare's back catalog, Jade Empire needs to be at the forefront of their priorities list to revisit in the future. The game's inventive combat, setting, and the good old days of BioWare storytelling needs to be experienced by a whole new generation, and barring a full-fledged remake, please make Jade Empire 2.
Always a pleasure to talk to another warrior. My game of Yi with Jian can wait a moment. What can I do for you?
Do you agree with our picks? Don't forget to stick around and check out our other videos on MojoPlays.